All right, let's get started. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I tend to be pretty loud, so I can go louder. My name's Andrew Hay. I'm here to talk about AI's glow and cybersecurity's growing shadow. If you came here thinking this is a talk about how awesome AI is and how it's going to fix all your problems, you're in the wrong talk. That's not what this talk's about. Yeah, everyone clears out. So my name's Andrew Hay. I'm the CISO of Demovo. I've been doing security for 24 years now. I've written a bunch of security books that, judging by my bank statements, none of you have read, but that's perfectly fine. The only one it upsets is my mother. I'm a rugby coach, strength and conditioning coach, and a competitive powerlifter because it keeps me sane when security doesn't. So this talk, like most of the talks that I present, usually materialize as something that has really upset me to the point of I either have to tell someone about this or I have to do a presentation on it. So I opted to do the presentation on it because I don't know if you've walked around the show floor, but there are a number of companies that miraculously have plus AI or blah, 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 AI on their product now. And what does that mean? It means they've added 2 letters to their marketing in most cases. Doesn't really mean that it's adding features or functionality that is going to help you get more secure, even though that may be the promise. So there is no doubt in my mind, or in a lot of people's minds, that there are not benefits that AI can provide. Just like if I paid more attention in school, I could have done really, really well at calculus. But I did not care to do really well at calculus, so I didn't pay attention. I didn't spend the time learning that and implementing the knowledge and the exercises to get better at calculus. And it's similar to AI. You know, AI is great. It'll help you analyze things faster. That makes sense. I think everyone can agree with that. You know, large swaths of data that you can analyze using computers. Hey, that's why we have computers. This is the next iteration of that. To being able to absorb and digest those large amounts or corpuses of data, that's not something that a single human can do. I used to run the research team at OpenDNS, which is now Cisco, and we had 4 terabytes of DNS query data per resolver for every location we had in the world. That is not something that one person's going to open up in a text editor and say, hey, let's see what we've got here. That's going to take a lot of time. So machine learning became very popular for working with that data to turn it into something usable. But that is not, that was the reason for the business, to get that data out. We had a problem that we were solving, and machine learning was helping solve that problem. One of the biggest challenges that I find, and I've, being a CISO for a number of years, it never fails that a C-level executive will go to a conference with their peers and they'll hear a new term and then they'll come back and they'll talk to you and saying, we need to buy this. What is it? I just heard about, ChatGPT. How do we use that for the business to make things better? Like, well, let's sit down and talk about it. Like, no, I just need you to buy it. They talked me into it. It sounded really cool. It's going to help things. We're going to make a whole bunch more money because of it. Like, we're starting here with the conversation and you're ending here with all the profit. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the middle that you have to work out. So one of the big challenges I have specifically with AI and people just bolting something on is that it's great. Hey, we're really excited. Are we ready for AI? Well, what about that server that you haven't patched in 3 years? What about implementing password management policies that people can follow to make the business safer? Is AI going to fix that? The surface? Probably not. It's not magical fairy dust that you're sprinkling over top of your problems to just make them go away. And it's also not something that you just kind of throw into the mix and hope to find a problem. That's a very good way to burn through a lot of money and time and effort very quickly, is throwing a new technology at something that may or may not be a problem in the hopes of finding a problem that it solves. Like, that is too far down the path of decision making to hope that you're spending a whole bunch of money on something that is going to find a problem that it solves, that's going to cover the cost that you invested in that solution. So you're kind of going in circles. Now, everyone's excited about AI. And I will admit that I used ChatGPT to create these graphics, and it did a pretty good job. Am I going to let it loose on my corporate network to fix all my problems tomorrow? No. But cool cartoony graphics? Yeah. I will get behind that. That's fine. So everyone always wants the fancy, shiny, new technology. They don't necessarily know why, but they want it. And it's really human nature. Who here has siblings? Older or younger? Younger sibling. All right. Do you remember when you would get a present and they would get really upset that they didn't get a present as well? Yeah, okay. Well, the other way around. Yeah, it's something you see with children that are close in age. And so I probably should have prefaced this by saying I'm not American, I'm Canadian. So don't hold anything against me. But in North America, you'll see a lot of parents started at birthday parties. They'll buy a gift for the person whose birthday it is, and then for the younger child so that they don't get upset as well. That seems kind of unfair to me. It's my birthday. Why shouldn't I be the only one getting the present? Oh, well, we don't want to cause problems. We'll just buy the kid something else as well so that everyone's happy. Everyone can be happy. So, and the reason is that the sibling, the younger child, sees that they're not getting something, they're missing out, they want something as well. And insecurity, that happens all the time. A lot of people will go to a trade show, they'll hear about other people buying something, and they're like, well, I want that too. That case study made this sound so easy that I could go back and just plug it into my network and it's going to fix all my problems. What they don't really talk about is all of the work under the surface that you still have to do to get it running. So it may look shiny and new at the top or face down or top down, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done under the covers or under the surface in order to get things operational. So one of perhaps the biggest challenges with people looking for AI to solve the problem is that there are so many security fundamentals that we as security professionals tend to deprioritize when the new thing comes along. So I was at the RSA conference, was it a month ago? I think it was. I don't even remember. But walking around, it was all of the vendors promising the next silver bullet to solve security. And what was the thing that was going to do that? AI. And then you dig in a little deeper. It's like, well, what did you do with AI? Like, we're doing an API call to ChatGPT, and it is generating text for us. If you ask it a question, it's going to give you a response. Oh, how much does that cost? That's an extra $100,000 a year. I'm like, whoa, that is not benefiting me. Like, it's kind of cool, but it's not really solving all of my problems that I've been dealing with the last 5 years that I have yet to get budget for, that I have yet to prioritize to fix. And then you're throwing something new into the mix that I have to worry about. and explain to my executive team that this isn't going to fix all of these other problems that are much bigger problems. In fact, it's going to add layers of complexity and additional work to understand how it works while neglecting all of this really bad stuff that someone is already working on. I often like to look at security maturity in organizations. And I was a data scientist. I spent a lot of time looking at reports, generating reports, trying to infer really interesting data from or outcome from the data. And because of that, I love reading other people's reports, usually to point things out that like, no, that's wrong. Like that's not a proper statement. So this, hopefully you can see this. This was a survey that I found on corporate AI readiness. So 4 in 10 execs agree that their data is not ready for accurate AI outputs. All right, 4 in 10. But look at the last figure. 84% said they expect to see results from AI projects within a year of deployment, and more than half, 58%, said the results would be quantifiable within 6 months. So we're not ready for it, but we have really big hopes and expectations that things are going to work out on the other end of that pipeline. We don't know what that's going to be, but we're 84% sure it's going to be good. This is, hope as a service is not a really good security product category. You're just going to be ending up spending a lot of money in the hopes that it resolves some of your issues. So if you look in the middle here, 39% of security on AI technical talent. That's great, but what about technical debt? What about the problems I've been fighting for the last 5 years, 10 years? I can't find people that understand AI to run these new systems that I'm 84% sure are going to result in positive outcomes. How about finding someone to manage patch management? Oh, well, that's not AI. Like, no, but it's going to reduce 90% of your attackable surface area within your organization. How about focusing on that? Oh, well, where are we going to find someone? Like, I'm pretty sure you can find someone that can apply a patch or that has a rudimentary understanding of how operating systems work and the tools used to apply patches and test to make sure that nothing is broken. And if it's broken, roll back. That's something we've been doing since we started building computers and running computers out. So the application of patches and the verification of proper application, it's a core functionality of not just security, but IT operations. People have these talents. We don't have to go searching for them. Now, what about if we compare AI readiness to security maturity level by country and by industry? So I, for one, when I looked at this separate report, was very surprised how far the USA was in this maturity level by country. I can only assume, having not looked at the raw data, it's based on the sample size, because there are so many more companies within the United States than the other countries sampled or queried. But Norway, 2.74 out of 3. That is pretty decent. I honestly could not tell you how many companies there are in Norway, but, let's say there's 100. That's still good for 100. If there's 1,000, that's still fantastic for 1,000. If there were 2, I'd be a little bit more suspect of the data, but that's pretty decent. Now, if you look at the maturity level by industry, energy. Is anyone surprised by energy being as high as it is? Does anyone here work in energy or oil and gas? Or have they in the past? Most of those systems are older than I am. So they're pretty mature because no one wants to touch them. Not only does no one want to touch them, but it's incredibly hard that once one person retires, finding someone in college or university, say, hey, how would you like to not work with cutting edge technology? How would you like to work with your parents' technology for a fraction of the salary you're going to get at someplace like Google or Facebook? There's probably not a long line of people looking for that opportunity. But in terms of security, these companies are highly regulated. They have very mature processes, and they are large. Services, I'm inferring here that they are mature because a lot of services organizations will launch brand new products or services quite frequently, and as a result, start baking security and the maturity of the organization into those products. So they are not developing a financial back-end system that needs to run for the next 40 years on an AS400. They're doing something on Kubernetes, and it has to run really fast and scale like crazy. Oh, and we're going to test things as we're deploying and building this code. So this really, we are building the plane as we are flying it, and we're going to make sure it's secure as we go. At the very bottom, retail. It surprised me a little bit, but not so much. If you go into a retail store, have you ever noticed how people share passwords to log in? They're old systems. They're not really high-tech terminals. They're pretty low-end terminals. They leave them unattended. There's just a lot of security practices that kind of fall by the wayside in such a transactional business. And they rely mainly on security awareness training and what not to do in order to make things better. So what happens if we adopt AI too fast? Well, I've said it a couple times, but just because... So let me ask you this question. Who here has been involved in a cloud migration project from on-prem to cloud? Or even going back further from on-prem physical servers to virtualized infrastructure? Yeah. The vendors always told us that if we just moved from one infrastructure area to the next, everything was going to be a lot better. It was going to be a lot more secure. And I remember when people started moving things to AWS, the first thing they would say was, well, we don't need security. We're on AWS. Like, well, what do you think that means? Like, well, we're fairly certain AWS cares about our security. They may now. They didn't when it first came out, because they were all about selling compute cycles, getting that money per compute hour and driving up their revenue. Security was a hindrance. Only afterwards did they say, well, let's start inserting some security into the mix here because, hey, we found a way to monetize security. We can make more money off security along with the compute hours. So then security became a priority because they can tie financial value to it. So as you can tell from my body shape, I'm an avid runner. Does anyone here run? Yeah. I've run before. Have you ever tried running without stretching? It gets worse the older you get. And if you do not stretch before run, it's like, all right, I'm going to run a marathon. I'm pretty sure I can just get out of my car, walk up, put my bib on, run a marathon. Everything will be fine. Guarantee you. Unless you are an elite athlete, probably not going to be fine. You need to stretch. You need to warm up. You need to get your body ready for the task that it is going to go through. And I really think that AI is a good example of warming up your body before doing strenuous activity, because you're putting something new on top of something old and hoping for the best. You need to make sure that everything fits and that your body is warmed up before doing this strenuous activity. So how do we get back to security basics? This by far is my favorite AI generated tool. As you can see, the house, middle row, far right side. Couldn't quite get that one done. That was a little alarming. I guess there was snow on the roof. But if you think about security as a foundational exercise, just like building a house, you cannot just snap your fingers and say, yeah, I've got a house. There's a lot of work that has to come before that happens. You have to pick land where the house is going to be built. You have to dig a hole. You have to build a foundation or lay a concrete slab where the building is going to be built on. You need the structural components, walls, floors, girders, anything to keep it in place and functional. So if you think of the network side of things, firewalls, routers, switches, maybe endpoint security, keeps things running and secure. And then obviously an occupant. In this case, for a security program, a very happy CISO, hopefully. Without a foundation, and I've seen houses that have not been built on a very good foundation. Living in Texas, all of the news that I see tends to be about tornadoes and hurricanes and trailer parks. They're always combined together. So you get to see the disaster of a structure not built on a proper foundation being lifted up in one state and being deposited in another state in a whole bunch of pieces. That's not to say that all the other houses are fine, but when a house is built on a strong foundation and a natural disaster goes through, it's far easier to rebuild because the underlying underpinnings are there, which they say on every home show as, oh, it's got good bones. It's got good structure. It's got good bones. So without a proper foundation, a house will fall into itself, given enough time. But where does AI fit in that mix? I think home automation is a great analogy because you cannot have home automation without having the home first. You are adding supplemental or augmented technology to the core infrastructure that is your home in order to provide a solution to a problem you've identified. Problem might be I need to be able to control my thermostat when I'm on my way home from work. I can't do that because there's a distance between myself and my home when I am away from it. So the best way to do this would be through home automation to be able to log into my phone and turn it on or turn it off or change the value. That's a problem with a solution that was invented. And it's, if you had a home, and a lot of people have done this, especially around the holidays, they start getting messages about deals and new things that are coming out like, oh, well, automated windows. I've never had that or had a need for that, but it sounds kind of cool and it's 50% off. I think I'll buy that. Does it really solve a problem? No, it's filling a want, definitely not a need. And it's a knee-jerk reaction to say, yeah, I want this. Not the good way to go about security, ever. So if I was to, let's say I had a stage and I was up here and had the ability to preach to you on something, I would say you need to get your house in order. I have always been a strong proponent of the Center for Internet Security Controls because they will tell you what you need to implement for various attackable surface area entry points into your organization. And it's been proven by research done, I think 4 years ago now, by the Australian government that on an older version of the controls when it was the CIS 20 that implementing the first, I think it was the first 6 controls, reduced 87% of threats facing organizations. And this is something that I've told people, like, look, pick one a month and start working on it. Or pick one a quarter and start working towards it. It's only going to make things better. Does AI have any play in this? No, this is foundational security that as you are going through this process, you may say, hey, you know what? This problem is being performed, or this problem is being resolved by a human doing a defined process or set of steps. I bet you I could probably automate this with AI to expedite this thing and take the human out of the equation because it's a menial task that I don't need to have someone assigned to doing. And I can have them then focus on the 40 other fires that are happening in my security program to help get things better. So that's what I mean by finding a problem before implementing a solution. So another good thing about CIS, you've no doubt heard everyone talking about NIST 2. If not today, then you will hear it tomorrow. But it can easily be crosswalked to CIS and vice versa, and ISO and GDPR. If you're doing work in the United States, NIST CSF, there's present mappings already defined to map to all these different security frameworks that make security that much easier. Now, I'm not against AI. I told you I did graphics. Another fantastic AI graphic. But the organization, you need to go back to your organization and say, look, AI is not the be-all, end-all. It really is a tool. We don't need to focus on what it could do. We need to focus on how it can improve things that we're already doing. How can we make identified issues less impacted by using something like AI to automate tasks, to just get rid of the menial day-to-day data entry, data processing work, moving widgets from one column to the other that we don't need a human to do anymore because the technology is there. And in order for this to happen, it's not just a culture of security, but a culture of information technology needs to be fostered within the organization. And the only way this is going to happen is if you talk about it more. Whether you're releasing a quarterly newsletter or having all hands calls or a lunch and learn, if you can steer the narrative of what you and the business believe the benefits of a technology like AI can be, then you get to educate the organization as to how they should start thinking about the application of AI, and not just come to you with, hey, I saw this really cool tool that we should use everywhere that hasn't been tested and is made by 2 people in their garage, and it uses AI. What problems it solve? I don't know, but it's really cool, and it only costs like €2 a month. Like, okay, well, it's cheap, sure, but that's not really helping me out here. Awareness training programs, always a big part of security. The human element doesn't go away. So we're kind of running up on time here. But if you take anything away from this talk, it should be these 5 questions. And no matter what someone comes to you with a new product or a new feature that has AI or the next great technology, maybe it's NFTs for security or something stupid. Maybe you say, okay, does something already exist that addresses this? And that answers the question, does a problem exist? Well, yes, if something exists for this, then the problem can be fixed. Now, would applying AI further optimize what the humans are doing? Yes or no? Would the application of AI cost more to operate than the problem asset or system? If you're throwing money at something that is costing more than what the asset or system is worth, I guarantee you your CFO is not going to be happy about that, should they find out. Because you're throwing money to protect something that's not worth all that protection. So if you're going to throw AI into the mix here, do you have or have access to the expertise to make it run properly? Is this going to work for your organization? Or are you going to be spending the next year learning how to use it only to hopefully apply it? And last but not least, how long is it going to take before you realize the costs and the investment that you've made in this technology? That is how I always justify my spends to the executive team. It's like, yes, we need to buy this. It is going to pay for itself in X amount of months. Or if we get a customer that does this, it pays for itself in 4 customers. So that's how I justify all of my expenses on tools or anything security. Works like a charm. So lots of benefits with AI. I'm not disputing that, but you need to have a problem that you are solving or that you are looking to solve before sprinkling AI fairy dust on it, hoping for the best. Hope is a terrible, terrible strategy for security. And the best way to make sure that your security program is sound is following frameworks and setting up a secure and testable baseline that allows you to measure how well your security is performing internally and against your peers, because you need some sort of stick against which to measure your success. And a technology thrown into the mix probably just isn't going to give you that number. So we've only had a short amount of time. I'm a little bit over because I usually am. But I'm here all day today, all day tomorrow. You can come to our booth. I will be there. I'll be the one in the back looking jet lagged because I am. But also doing the same talk again tomorrow. But please feel free to reach out to me, email, connect on LinkedIn, whatever. If you don't feel like asking a question now, if you think of something in the middle of the night, well, maybe don't call me, but send me an email. I'll get back to you and we can keep on talking. All right. Thanks a lot.